held these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Have you ever reread the Declaration and wondered if it was just a relic or a roadmap? When a long train of abuses and usurpations evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. Those aren't just historical words. They're an open question. When does a free society cross into tyranny, and what then? If you've ever fought injustice, I'm sure you've asked yourself the same question. But it's no longer an academic debate, but a moral imperative. We're asking that question now, not because we want to fight, but because we need to know where we stand. If America creeps closer to authoritarian rule, is it enough to protest, or will it someday demand something more? Let's go back a bit. Thomas Jefferson wasn't the first to lay this out. For that, we look to John Locke, an Enlightenment thinker who believed people are born with rights and that governments only exist because we consent. Jefferson borrowed that idea. He didn't write it, he trusted it, until he didn't. Then there was Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He argued that we, not monarchs, are sovereign. And Thomas Paine, he didn't sugarcoat it. "'Tis time to part," he declared outright. He saw revolution not as a whim, it was a moral necessity. Where Locke believed in incremental reform, Karl Marx, who wasn't just about workers or factories, he warned that if you only tweak a broken system, it keeps breaking. Real change means replacing it. Radical overhaul, not a patch job. Then there's Hannah Arendt, whose story echoes today. She fled Nazi Germany and warned us, tyranny doesn't fall in one storm, it seeps in. It starts with silence and ends with ghettos, papers stamped, voices erased. Things worth resisting often come tied to faith and conscience. In the Old Testament, Moses stood against Pharaoh, not just to escape, but to free a people. In the New Testament, Jesus spoke truth to Roman authority, yet refused violent revolt. That tension between prophetic resistance and pacifism is ancient. Church fathers like Augustine and Aquinas later shaped a tradition we call just war. That idea, war can be moral if it's last resort, and if it protects innocent life more than it destroys it. When does that matter? When a country becomes oppressive and refuses reform, even peaceful ones, then resistance becomes moral, not rebellion for its own sake, but a necessary act to restore justice. Let's be real. What's the difference between marching in the streets and starting a revolution? Revolution doesn't always begin with banners and barricades. Sometimes it begins with a teacher refusing to lie, or a judge refusing to bend. Look at Gandhi. He walked barefoot across India, defying empire with peaceful disobedience. He believed that nonviolence wasn't just strategic, it was spiritual truth. Dr. King inherited that. He said it wasn't the absence of violence, but the presence of justice. Nonviolence builds trust. It invites everyone in, even your critics, but it can be ignored or pushed aside if the powers that be decide it's inconvenient. Revolution, on the other hand, is total change. It's not about shaming power, it's about rewriting it. That brings chaos, fear, loss, and yes, sometimes more cruelty. That's why philosophers caution, it's a last resort, not a first. Is all war evil? Not by just war criteria. Let's look at World War II. The Allies didn't wake up one morning and decide to bomb Germany. They responded to genocide, to aggression, to industrial evil that could kill millions more. That was a just war. But there's always a line. Not every conflict meets it. And Arendt warned us, systems can channel mass violence through bureaucracy. We saw it in Nazi Germany and in lies about collateral damage in modern wars. We'll be talking about Nazis 1,000 years from now, not only because they were exceptional monsters, but because they showed how ordinary institutions and ideas can be weaponized for horror. The danger? It's not always obvious. It doesn't always wear swastikas in daylight. We must remember that so America doesn't walk that path again. Jefferson didn't write those words imagining they'd gather dust. He knew then that self-government meant vigilance. What if elections become unfair? What if courts bend with politics? What if truth becomes something tunable? Our founding wasn't a fevered hope. It was a commitment. Stay awake. Stay free. So what's happening in Los Angeles right now? Trump hasn't yet declared a state of insurrection, but even without it, he's deployed nearly 5,000 troops guard and Marines into LA, bypassing gubernatorial authority. That's extraordinary. It sets a precedent. It tests the line. Instead, Trump is citing a broader Title X provision to federalize the Guard and authorize military support, ostensibly just to protect federal property. But legal scholars call this stretch unprecedented and constitutionally dubious. Is there real chaos, or is it manufactured so it can be controlled? When the state provokes, then responds, you have order from chaos. That's hardly foreign. Nazis did it. Authoritarians still do. When the military enters our streets without local consent, the question isn't, should we be alarmed? It's why we're not already. This isn't hyperbole. It's the moment before the page turns. And history has shown us, when the military marches where dissent is loudest, freedom often retreats in silence. If Trump, or any future leader, declares a state of insurrection, we have to ask, when do we stop protesting and start more? When elections are meaningless, when courts are political, when speaking the truth is dangerous. When that happens, we face a choice. Leave, resist, or live with the burden of knowing we watched our democracy fall. Imagine a world where elections still happen but no longer matter, where courts rubber stamp power, where truth lives in whispers and history is what the regime says it is. That world isn't fiction, it's foreshadowing. Even without formal insurrection, deploying active duty Marines on American streets when state leaders object is an authoritarian escalation. It's legality being repurposed into control. You don't need to storm anything. You need to build, volunteer, vote, run for something, write, teach, speak up. Nonviolence works until it's crushed. When it's suppressed, then the question becomes, how far will we let it go? I believe we crave peace, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because civil society is more fragile than we often admit. John Adams said, "Liberty once lost, remains lost forever." Arendt warned, the most radical revolutionary becomes conservative the next day. So here's the truth. Democracy is not an endpoint. It's a promise, and the hour is now. Will future generations say we stood up, or that we let it slip? Will they thank us, or weep for us? Or worse yet, will they weep for themselves and the future we left them? Nonviolence is not weakness, but discipline with purpose. This has been episode 10 of our limited YouTube series, Democracy in Crisis, on the Renaissance Spirit channel. In our next episode, titled Oligarchy and Ugliness, What Corporations Are Doing to You, we'll discuss the pervasive effects on culture and society by oligarchy and corporations. Catch up on the earlier episodes next and live the Renaissance spirit. Question power. And so I leave you with this. As Aquinas said, a tyrannical law is not law, but a perversion of it. To follow it blindly is not obedience, it's surrender. Choose courage, because history is watching.